All right, so the Arizona Cardinals. This is the first of my off-season review or season review, I suppose, series. Just going through every team, how I did with the betting on them, and really a rundown of what they have on roster that's important to know, and how the players that they have performed. You know what they really have standing and going into the offseason. So yeah, the Arizona Cardinals, they were actually one of my worst teams, to be honest with you. My overall record with them, just 23-18, so just over 500, which I think a lot of that, well, they played some really goofy games, very specifically when they beat the Seahawks in overtime early in the year, in week 8 or 9, and then the Hail Mary, of course, the Hail Mary against the Buffalo Bills. So those flipped some results for me in those games, but overall, not too worried, and especially with the strong bets as far as the Cardinals go, we were 3, 6, 8, and 3, or sorry, 8 and 2. So not too bad, and that's about the number that I'm shooting for. 9 and 2 actually. That's about the number that I'm shooting for with all these teams. But a unique thing with them, I did get of the stuff that I thought was bettable, but wasn't super strong about. I actually got all 4 of the spreads wrong with this team. Again, it's just a little weird because they had some goofy results there at the end. So as far as their offense goes, the players on the actual roster. At quarterback, Kyler Murray. Kyler's really good. Well, I do that a lot with some of these players that I go over. He's not really good. He's just pretty good. He still does struggle as an actual passer at times. He notably continued to have issues with accuracy as far as linear, like bullet throws go, which is just an interesting quirk about him. He has one of the best touch passes in the NFL as far as floating it into windows down the field. But for some reason, when he tries to just haul off and throw a ball as hard as he can, he kind of sucks at it, to be honest with you. And that's where a lot of his interceptions come from. Hell, when he threw the 3 against the Lions early in the season, or the Panthers, whichever game that was, I think it was the Lions, those were almost direct results of that. Now, he still isn't great at reading defenses either. And while I do think he improved from his rookie year in that, he's just not mentally at the top tier quarterbacks, and it's not necessarily something I would expect to see him be able to do starting next year, down the line probably as he gets further and further in his career. But as of right now, you're still talking about a quarterback who's better running than he is throwing and is going to have dumb turnovers. So, but you can win with him for sure, and I think that's the important part of what we learned this year. Now, as far as backups go, Chris Trevler, he wasn't good when he played, so nothing there. At running back, Kenyan Drake. So he's a free agent right now, and he this year was meh. That's about what I expected. I mean, he is really good in some schemes where he just makes one cut down the field and is able to move into space. And if he were to go into a scheme, like the 49ers, now granted this applies to pretty much every running back in the NFL, he would still be really good. It's just that the Cardinals, and this is something I'm going to talk about kind of once I get through all the personnel and offense, their offensive coaching is still one of the bottom in the league, absolutely terrible. So that hurt his actual production and what he looks like on the field quite a bit. I still think he'll be fine, whatever he signs for, especially if it's a bargain contract. He's going to be just as useful a running back as most of these other non-superstar guys. So other than that, Chase Edmonds really good. Thought they going into the year, that guy is legitimately creates yards for his offense. Not every running back can say that, so that's really nice to see for him. To get a player who's able to do that. Other than that, though, Benjamin, 7th round pick, didn't even play at all, and Jonathan Ward, I think that's one snap maybe. So not a lot of running back though going into the offseason. At receiver, DeAndre Hopkins. So I have a lot of problems with DeAndre Hopkins as far as when people say he's a no-brainer top 3 receiver. That's just not true. He doesn't provide the things that guys like Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, Julio Jones does. Now, he has a really specific, really useful skill set as far as the always being open type of thing. It's just people overrate how much that actually drives offensive play, because he by himself, and you saw that this year when he played against Jalen Ramsey, he played against Stephon Gilmore, that he just doesn't beat elite corners with any level of consistency. Now, he does better against them than, insert B-level receiver here, but that's not what you need when you pay a receiver that much. Now, was the trade for him worth it from the offseason? Yes, of course. Just with that level of value, giving away David Johnson's contract and only a second rounder, I'm not going to argue with that. But people really need to chill. And again, you saw that with DeAndre Hopkins, that he actually by himself does not drive offense the way that I think a lot of people just in their mind think he does. As far as the other receivers, Larry Fitzgerald was still really good this year. He's getting older and older, and don't believe he's announced he's going to retire yet. If he does come back, though, he's going to be useful until the day he retires as effectively a tight end at this point. There are other guys, though, more interestingly, Christian Kirk and Isabella. So basically, I think Christian Kirk sucks, and that was pretty much proven this year. He's effectively only a deep threat who doesn't have ball skills, which just does not lead to a good situation. Andy Isabella is basically the same player as him, but I would argue probably already better if they were to get a similar amount of targets. Now, they both have issues for sure, but going to the offseason, they really do need more pass catchers because, Christian Kirk's just not good enough. Now, with his speed, he's always going to be useful as an NFL receiver, third, fourth guy, because when you can run that fast in a straight line, it just solves so many other problems you might have, which, I'm not going to take that away from him, but you saw he just hasn't developed as an actual route runner or anything like that. He's just not very good. There are other guys, Keyshawn Johnson, Trent Sherfield. Trent Sherfield should not be on the NFL roster. No offense to him. He just he doesn't do anything productive that any other receiver with any level of NFL experience wouldn't do. And Keyshawn Johnson didn't really do anything different or special this year to show that he should remain something in their plan at receiver. He's not awful, but he's effectively just like a stop route outside the numbers guy. But he's not even really useful at that. So whatever. At receiver, they basically do just still have Deandre Hopkins, and they really do need more. At tight end, Max Williams just a blocker. Really, whatever there. Even as a blocker, he doesn't really have the mobility that other guys think that you need to be an elite player at that position. And Dan Arnold, who is a free agent now, I actually think they could have used him a whole lot better, and I think he is maybe one of the major points when you look at how bad their offensive coaching is. So when you look at him actually on tape and what he does, he actually legitimately creates separation more than the vast majority of other tight ends in the NFL do, and I mean the vast majority. He's legitimately really good at it. He wasn't asked to do a lot of that stuff, and when he was, it was as part of plays that the Cardinals run that are just fucking wide receiver screens, and you'll see him be a linebacker safety who shadowed him off the line of scrimmage, and the ball is just already thrown 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage the other direction, which not good. But we'll see if they bring him back or not. He is still really, really bad as a blocker, so I understand why he didn't get on the field a ton. Not that they use their tight ends very well as blockers anyway, but that's in Daryl Daniels though. Daryl Daniels is really, really good. He's kind of what I think people think Max Williams, or what the Cardinals at least thought Max Williams is going to be. Daryl Daniels is awesome. He's the type of player that I would love to have on my team as third, fourth tight end. Well, don't really have four tight ends in the modern NFL, but as a third tight end, he legitimately moves well in space and is able to reach guys on the second level. And I think the Cardinals definitely have something in him. So, as far as the skill positions, before I get into the offensive line, as far as the skill positions go, the Cardinals, they really need help. It's Kyler and DeAndre Hopkins and effectively nothing else. You can pull production out of it if you do this college offense that they do, because you can pull production out of anybody, but the problem is the high-end production is just really, really not there without Kyler Murray doing what he did in the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season when he was going on these, consistently having these 30-yard miracle touchdown runs, which made their offensive numbers look a whole lot better than they really were performing, the level their offense was performing at. And and while Cliff Kingsbury's there, he's still gonna hold them back for sure unless he learns a whole lot. Because when people talk about the problem with spread offenses in the NFL, I think the Cardinals are the number one example. Because if they had a better offensive coordinator, they're an easy playoff team last year, no question about it. So that's where they are as far as that. I think that's what most people are interested in. So now I'll get into the more the gritty of the roster and stuff, and then get into the defense after. So at the offensive line, DJ Humphries, he is who I thought he was, and he's a good tackle. So he fits in this category tackle where if he's against an elite player, he's not going to do very good. You saw that in the first couple weeks of the year this year. But if he's against anything that's not an elite player, he's actually, he's really good. He's about as close to a shutdown as any of these other guys. Like Ryan Ramchick or whatever, if they're playing against a non-elite defensive end, he'll probably do just as good. The problem is when he plays against the guys at the higher end. The issue with that, of course, being with the 49ers getting Nick Bosa back going into this year. Nick Bosa kills him. He's done it every year or every time they've played. Yeah, just watch, it gets ugly, which is an issue for sure. And we'll see what the Seahawks do at edge rusher. But the Cardinals Or sorry, but the tackle, yeah, he's all right. Kelvin Beacon actually did pretty good this year. The Cardinals, and that's another thing, is like the Cardinals' offensive line is actually good. Kyler Murray still creates a ton of sacks and pressure on himself because he just doesn't read defense as well. He holds the ball too long, and he scrambles instead of up and out of the pocket. He scrambles almost straight sideways, which leads to your tackles looking really bad way more often than they actually are. And so, the Cardinals, Kelvin Beacon and DJ Humphries is, I don't know, top 5, top 10 tackle duo in the NFL for sure. Now, Kelvin Beacon is older, so we'll see how long he holds up. But I think tackles actually do age better than maybe people think they do. Andrew Whitworth being an example, maybe a little unique, but they got good tackles. Now, they drafted Josh Jones in the 3rd round, and he only played in his extra blocker, and he was not impressive. I know a ton of people, including myself, because that was before I really formed a lot of my own opinions. We were looking at him as like this huge steal in the draft, and maybe it's true, maybe it's not, I don't know, but he wasn't good enough to get on the field, which, again, not surprising. Their tackles are really good, but we'll see if they actually do have anything in him or not. Justin Murray, I want to talk about too, so I'm going to talk about him as I get into the guards as well. He played a lot more 2 years ago, and he played some this year when J.R. Sweezy was out, and he was actually rotating in. I think he should play more. He should have played over J.R. Sweezy this whole year, really. He's actually pretty good. Now, he can struggle with pass protection, especially a tackle. Like, if his feet are so slow, if he's a tackle, you're going to run into a bunch of issues. But when he's a guard, I actually think that covers up a lot of his deficiencies, that he becomes a positive player really quickly, especially if he were getting every down snap. So they have something in him. We'll see how that goes, because I know they are going to probably be moving on from. Well, I think they already moved on from J.R. Sweezy, and maybe even just Hughes, who's old and has a big contract this year. They got some in him, but those two specifically, J.R. Sweezy, kind of bad. He's not awful because he actually fits into the type of. There's these guards, actually kind of like Quentin Nelson. Now Quentin Nelson is the peak elite version of this, but when they rock somebody, they just kill them. But they are prone to losing really badly at times. Justin Puget does it infinitely more than Quentin Nelson does, but that's the type of player he is. Either wins really hard or loses really bad. Justin Pugh kind of the complete opposite of that. He rarely loses bad, ever, but he does struggle to meaningfully impact defenders. But I think that's actually a pretty useful skill set as far as not fucking up, basically, on the offensive line, especially from the guard position. But, so their offensive line, and then the center. Mason Cole's terrible. He's incredibly weak. And with the way they run these, their run scheme goes where they just end up running a lot of draws, and they depend on Mason Cole not just getting tossed around in the center. It's no shocker that when he gets tossed around, they run straight into it. They end up, running for 1 to -1 yards. It happens all the time. Mason Cole's bad, should not be playing. He's just too weak. And same with their backup, Lamont Galliard, however he says it. Might actually be the weakest offensive lineman in the entire NFL. Really, really bad. Shouldn't be on an NFL roster either. So, yeah, going forward, they have tackles set. We'll see what they have in Josh Jones. I think they got some in Justin Murray too. And veterans, they don't rely a ton, despite what I said about the run game. They don't rely a ton overall on their center to be super productive. So they just need a little bit of an upgrade. I think that would go a long way for them to just not have such a disaster at that spot. So, yeah, as far as the offense goes, I do think the Cardinals, they definitely have a foundation. Just when you have Kyler and Deandre Hopkins, you have that, but we'll see. They do need help in other areas. So then we got the defense here. All right, so then for the Cardinals defense, and first I'm going to start up front because their front seven, especially going to next year, really has a chance to be nuts. So I'm doing this video after the J.J. Watt signing. That was actually kind of why I hurried up and started to make all these before free agency really gets underway, so I can get these thoughts out of the way. And so, god damn. I guess J.J. Watt last, because other than him, they have a ton of really good players up front that, frankly, didn't come all the way through this year because of injuries. They were hugely impacted by injuries up front throughout the year. Jordan Phillips, Corey Peters, Lecky Fotu, Rashard Lawrence, all of them missed time. I know. I think Zach Allen was hurt to begin the year. They really went through some stuff, but with them all healthy, they really got between. So, Corey Peters, Jordan Phillips. Jordan Phillips signing absolutely worked out. He's really good. Now, he does still have some issues in run defense, I'll grant you. But as far as useful defensive linemen go, he's way up there, especially when he's surrounded by other good guys. Corey Peters is really good nose tackle. Angelo Blackson came over from the Texans. They really got some in him. I thought he was good on the Texans. Really glad that he showed up on the Cardinals too. He's a really good player. Angelo Blackson is he legitimately penetrates in the backfield. Really useful. Zach Allen, he's still bad though. He is what I think people want. Or sorry, Angelo Blackson is what people want Zach Allen to be, but he's just not that. His win rate is way lower. He doesn't really do anything useful. He's really weak. Shouldn't really see significant snaps going forward. They probably will give him. He's starting throughout this year, but that is the one weak spot for sure. But other than him, I mean, the two rookies, Lucky Fotu, Rashard Lawrence. Lucky Fotu, I think, has really shown some things as far as hand usage go and being able to move offensive linemen at the point of attack. And actually, he's quicker than I expected, to be honest with you. Or more mobile at the very least. Rashard Lawrence, he didn't necessarily impress me nearly as much. Now, he actually is a little bit reminiscent of Zach Allen. Now, he's a lot bigger. But in terms of, like, penetrating quickly being his useful skill, but he doesn't do that much either. I'm a little bit worried about his long-term usefulness. But Lucky Fotu for sure. Devonta Pico, who they brought in late in the year, was still really good as nose tackle. There's a reason that guy's been in the NFL for such a long time. Are they going to re-sign him? Probably not, especially with the depth they have. But they know how to find defensive linemen. I mean, hell, even Trayvon Cole, you want to mention too, who's actually in the Jets now. They fucked up. He's a really good player, and he's going to be really good on the Jets too. And he was with the Cardinals, and he was playing for them earlier in the year, but for whatever reason, they chose other guys over him, specifically like Michael Dogbe. They kept on the practice squad as a effectively useless player. So that's just an interesting thing, but I think that maybe does speak to how good they are finding guys up front. And now you add J.J. Watt into that, and I mean, you're talking about levels of defensive line talent up front that are going to rival like the Buccaneers from this year or what people thought the Broncos were going to be. And I really do mean that. Now, on the edges, they're really good too. Well, we'll see how they actually move their personnel around before I get too into that, because Chandler Jones back healthy, awesome player, A+, really good. So that's going to be just one side set. But on the other side, I mean, we'll see. They have options there. I mean, Hassan Reddick's terrible. They should absolutely not re-sign him for whatever contract. Some team fucks up and overpays him in the offseason. All of his sacks, like, literally, are just either effort plays or plays that any NFL caliber, like bottom tier NFL caliber outside linebacker would have gotten in the same place. And I don't hate Hassan Reddick. I don't have anything against the guy personally. I know I just talk shit about him a lot because he's just really bad, and he still gets absolutely blown up at the point of attack and run defense. He's really not a useful pass rusher, like I said, unless he's doing things that any other player could do. He just happened to be in a lot of those situations this year. Now you can say that he has a nose for the ball, blah blah blah, whatever. That's just not the case. Predictably, or in terms of predictive power of the way what he does, he's just not good enough to demand a meaningful contract. So, but the point is that other than him, though, they have players. I mean, Devon Kennard's awesome, who should be back. I would imagine he was injured for part of the year as well, but he's a legitimately useful run defender. And actually, as far as creating pass rush himself, he's better than Hassan Reddick. He knows how to use his hands. He's actually a good player. Marcus Golden, too, he is a little bit more on the effort side for sure, but he knows what he's doing. He's, again, been in the NFL for a long time for a reason. He's a really good player. So they have options there. And frankly, what I want to talk about with this, too, is Dennis Gardick. So out of fucking nowhere, right, this guy was legitimately, when he was getting snaps, because I think he got hurt late in the year, too. When he was getting snaps, he was a really good, useful player. He actually created. Now, he was a one-track. I mean, he just full speed bull rushed guys just starting from, whatever wide nine technique, way out on the outside, just ran full speed and knocked dudes over or back into the quarterback. But it was working, and he has legitimate strength to be able to do that, and he was doing it against real NFL tackles fairly consistently. So I think that between him, Marcus Golden, if he comes back, and Devon Kennard, they really have something on the edge, just opposite Chandler Jones, and they just need to let Hassan Reddick go for sure. But yeah, I think there's a chance that their front seven is really good, because at linebacker, they're kind of, I mean, Jordan Hicks is probably one of the more underrated, maybe most underrated linebackers, because people like to say, or linebackers, because people like to say, like Lante David on the Bucs or something like that is, but he's not actually. If you watch football, you understand he's not, and that goes from before this year too. Obviously, playing the Super Bowl is a little bit different now, but Jordan Hicks is like legitimately, he's in that tier of player, and nobody talks about him. I don't think so much. He's really good, so they have him. And in a division, when you play against the Rams and 49ers, who both run similar schemes that require mobile, smart middle linebackers, he's really important for them defensively. Their other spot, we'll see. Devonta Campbell, his issues really showed up throughout the year. He's just too slow. Not necessarily physically, but I think mentally probably, to meaningfully impact run or short schemes, whether it's run or screen back, all that type of stuff, sideline to sideline. And they ask him to. I mean, hell, they would ask him to man cover guys, running backs, tight ends out in the slot, which is a horrible idea and predictably went horrible. But we'll see if he's back. He was on a 1-year contract. I would imagine they probably don't. And they, I mean, you can find someone to get his production, no problem, effectively anywhere else. But their other guy, well, specifically, I suppose, the only other one who matters is Isaiah Simmons. So Isaiah Simmons, I think they really did learn how to use him a lot better as the season went on. Because similar to, like I mentioned with Deandre Campbell, at the beginning of the year, they were legitimately asking him to cover like George Kittle and these like real NFL players in the slot, like whether it be running backs or tight ends. They were asking him to like just straight up one-on-one man cover them, and he got burned over and over. The long Raheem Mostert touchdown week 1 was that too. He can't do it, and he did show that. I mean, that was throughout the year. That was a problem. He's not, I think, what people thought he was going to be in terms of this, this like perfect Madden player who can do literally everything perfectly. He's nowhere near that. He does definitely come off a lot more of just he can do everything to a little bit okay. Now, he did show some more playmaking ability later in the year, especially, the Seahawks game with that interception in overtime. Granted, that was just kind of a bad Russell Wilson throw, but he did show that he does have speed to impact plays across the field, and I do think that there is still a ceiling for him to be a really useful player. Now, is he going to be a superstar? I actually personally really, really doubt it. I don't think he is good enough, frankly, to be able to do things like I said, like cover meaningful NFL players one-on-one in pass coverage, and actually as far as taking on blocks, he's not that good. So his upside, I think, is limited as far as superstar goes. But as far as being a useful player, I could definitely see it with him. Is it going to happen this year? I don't know. I do think they need to bring in somebody else to play next to Jordan Hicks if they want to be good, which they clearly do. So let's see how that goes. Secondary. So this is the huge problem for the Cardinals going into the secondary, or going into the offseason. Outside of, I would argue, they need another receiver. This secondary stuff is definitely number one. So Patrick Peterson, free agent, and even if he comes back, not so good at this point. He can cover big body guys still decently, maybe even a little better decently. Someone like Mike Evans or DK Metcalf in the division, he can do okay. Granted, that went a little bit badly once in that matchup too, but that was more Russell Wilson and just kind of chance contested stuff. So that's what he can do, but he still just gets absolutely destroyed, burned by any receiver with any level of useful agility or route and running ability. So we'll see if he comes back or not. Dre Kirkpatrick, I actually don't think he was as bad as maybe people thought he was. He had especially one real notable bad personal foul late in the year, but he wasn't like a disaster in coverage. He didn't really get burned a lot. He does run into similar issues as Peterson on the other side as far as just he's not super agile at this point, so he can kind of get just run away from. But I don't think he's awful. So we'll see. I don't really expect them to bring him back necessarily either. But that means that you're talking about only Byron Murphy, nothing else. And Byron Murphy's awful. So he got like incrementally better from his rookie year to this year. People, I think, will maybe say he got better than that. I'm just going to completely really disagree. He was playing in a better defense for sure. Some more of his shortcomings were covered up from, but that guy still gets rocked like constantly by even just okay receivers. I mean, it's something I depend on when I'm betting against the Cardinals, is how bad he's going to be. Now, like I said, the Cardinals were one of my worst teams, but it wasn't for that reason. In all the reviews I did, I mean, that was one of the factors that I could consistently depend on to look back at the game and say, oh, hey, Byron Murphy's getting beat really badly in coverage. So they're going to struggle with him on the field, and he's going to keep being on the field as a high draft pick who I think they think is good, and they're just wrong. So that's an issue for sure, but not impossible to work around. He's just a slot corner, so there are things that they're going to be able to do, hopefully, to make up for that. And I do think, actually, the defensive coordinator, Vance Joseph, is pretty good. So we'll see how that goes. I want to mention the safeties then too. So I actually think that they're going to be fine at safety. They were injured a lot at that position as well because, like with Chris Banjo on the field, that was a disaster. He's really bad in coverage, but especially next to Buda Baker, who's also pretty mediocre at best, absolute best in coverage. But at the free safety spot, I think between, especially Deonte Thompson, I'm telling you, they have something in Deonte Thompson. He should be their full-time starter going into next year. He was really good pretty much all the time he played. He had some issues with plays that, happen to every safety in the NFL as far as getting rubbed out on certain. I was just thinking, one specific goal line play where he just got picked, but that happens to every safety. So he's really good. They should play Deonte Thompson. They also have Jalen Thompson. I don't think he's awful. He's kind of just okay as a normal free safety guy, and Charles Washington. So Charles Washington is kind of their third string safety, who frankly should have played a whole lot more than he did this year. He showed an ability to understand what's happening with the offense and be in the right place at the right time. Now, granted, it's not a ton of snaps, but it was enough for me to be pretty convinced that they have something in him now. Are they going to take advantage of it? Like I said, who knows? But they do get something there. So then you talk about their other safety spot, the last player on the roster, or spot on the roster, Buda Baker. Not defensive player of the year level, I'll tell you that much, the way that people talked about it for a lot of the year. So he fits into this type of safety that I think gets really, really overrated by a lot of people because he will show up on highlights all the time because of his just, complete fixation on always just constantly taking the ball at 100%, which can be really valuable and shows as really valuable a lot of times. And he will make plays. He will continue to make plays his whole career. And he's going to do things that become really good for his team. But he is still pretty actively bad in coverage. He can't cover guys one-on-one that he gets asked to. Again, the Cardinals have an issue with that in general in terms of asking players who cannot man cover players to cover them in man, which we'll see if that changes going into next year. I'm sure that they realize that at least to an extent. But yeah, Buda Baker, that's still really an issue, but he isn't as bad as other guys. I think it sounds like, again, that I hate him. I really don't. And he does really exciting things. People got to chill on how good and impactful he actually is as a down-to-down defender. But the point is, overall on defense, I think going into the offseason, they just need corner help, really, because if they play Deonte Thompson, Charles Washington, next to Buda Baker, I think they're going to be good at that spot, especially compared to some of the other teams in the league. Their front seven has the chance to be absolutely elite, top best in the league if they stay healthy and with J.J. Watt, and they just need their corners to not suck. And frankly, I think they should just bring back Dre Kirkpatrick and some of these other veteran corners that are on the free agency market, because they just need to try to not suck as much, which, obviously, but that's really what they're looking for, is corners A1, and then I think receivers is the next one. But that's how the Cardinals were, like I said, still okay, especially, 9-3, or 9-2, sorry, with the strong bets on them, so don't feel too bad about it, but definitely looking to get better, and we'll see how it goes in the offseason. But I think this is going to be the format I do for most of my offseason reviews. Maybe I'll try to get them a little bit shorter, but that is the Arizona Cardinals 2020 season.